and good afternoon, everyone. It is absolutely my pleasure to be here presenting at the CII annual conference. Yes, my name is Breen, and I'm with the Project Management Institute. Probably guessed from my accent that I'm not from around here. I'm actually from Philly. No, the company is from Philly. I'm from Australia, currently living in Singapore. And really excited just to be talking about this topic of bringing construction projects to life. And just to give you a little bit of background to that, we had one of our partners who came to us and said, we love the project management professional or the PMP, but is there something that you can do specifically focused on the construction industry? So we then started talking to other customers, members, partners, etc. And we asked them that question and they said, this would be fantastic. We already had a lot of members who were in the construction industry who held PMP certification, so it was really a no-brainer for us to get involved in this. But it was very important for us for this to be industry-led. So it wasn't just PMI telling people what they should do, it was us listening to the industry, finding out what the pain points are and making sure that we were building something that addresses those. Okay, so what we found when we started talking to these organisations, so we did interviews, we did surveys, the pain points were very similar all around the world. And we were able to really condense it into less than 10 similar categories of issues that they were expressing. We wanted to make sure that we were pulling the best organisations from all around the world. The reason I'm here is because CII was one of those volunteers who worked very closely with PMI to make this happen. So a little bit of background to myself. I am actually a structural engineer. I was not a particularly good engineer. I was better at telling other people what to do, so I got into project management. I've been privileged to work on some pretty large projects over the years throughout the Asia-Pacific region. This project here, some might recognise the Marina Bay Sands project in Singapore. It was a $5 billion project that had up to 25,000 workers working on it at any one time. It was very complex, it had very short time frames. In fact, I didn't know how long the project was going to, project duration was given to us in a time frame, but then it just everything started on site and was shortened. So we had to quickly adapt to that. And I've worked for developers, contractors, interior design firms, and ran my own project management consultancy. So enough about me. Can I see a show of hands for those who know of PMI? Okay. So that's a good number of people out there. Great place to start. So PMI was formed more than 50 years ago by a small group of project managers that really wanted to improve the project management processes, to scale best practice, to make the industry a lot more efficient. So it was literally around a dining room table that began. Now we aspire to be the place to go for all things project management. We have more than 600,000 members. Just now it's actually 1.8 million certification holders and truly global in more than 200 countries and territories. But the real secret sauce, as we say, really is the chapters and volunteers, people who put their blood, sweat and tears into improving the project and program management industries. So we applaud them. So we had to look at the construction landscape before we started as well. We started by working with some other partners such as McKinsey to determine things like how big the construction industry is. And we determined it's the largest in the world at 13% of GDP. But it has not been performing well. For the last 20 years, it's only growing at about 1%. We also determined that there is nearly $70 trillion in global infrastructure investments needed through to 2035. So it's a huge amount of investments all around the world. And one particular thing is that the skilled labour shortages is a significant issue as well. And that will be exacerbated in the US, where construction workers or the construction workforce is expected to, I think 41% is expected to retire by 2031. So it's really critical for people to upskill or to bring in the right levels of talent to help us deliver the projects. Some other information here, some sources from CII and Bechtel. 98% of projects, mega projects, experience cost overruns. 95% of all projects fail to meet one or more business objectives, and 70% of all projects are not completed within 10% of the budgeted cost and schedule. So pretty scary numbers. You can see the quote from Ian Edwards, the CEO of SNC Lavalin. I think the current model within our industry is broken. So the other things that significantly changed was that, the slide's not moving, but that's okay, is that COVID-19 reshaped many things. First of all, it reshaped the types of projects that we're working on. Less hospitality, retail, entertainment, and a lot more on infrastructure, transportation, and healthcare. You know, all the governments around the world are spending trillions of dollars to stimulate the economy, make sure that the workforces are coming back and people are being looked after. The second thing was on worker safety, where it's always been a big issue, and I see it being spoken about today in many of the different sessions. It continues to be a big issue. During COVID, there was specific COVID-related safety protocols that needed to be followed as well. Virtual meetings, in fact, has become very common, and in some ways it's created an advantage because people who would normally be on a construction site are now dialing in from all around the world. So we're actually getting a more diverse level of input into the projects. The modularisation and prefabrication, again, something that's been around for a very long time, but because projects were backlogged and were, budget constraints was an issue, there was more of this happening so that it could be brought to site quickly, put together with a lot less workers on site as well. Digital supply chain, we've heard a little bit about that today as well, where planning for materials was even more critical than ever. Locally sourcing materials if possible, and if not, using strong tools to enable you to plan for the future. Robots automating repetitive steps. We're seeing now on some projects that a whole brick wall is built with robots, or the paving of the road is laid at an incredible pace. And artificial intelligence. The next session will delve into that even more. But the fact is that technology has been having a large impact on the construction industry for many, many years, well before COVID. And if you look at a curve of the technology that's advancing at an incredibly fast rate, individuals are following that but can't keep up with that same rate. And the third one is organisations that are way behind the curve because of either budget constraints, time constraints, or it could be hierarchy that's preventing them from catching up with that curve. We also have, we're seeing things like drones that are being used. We have a customer in the Middle East that you go into one of their rooms and it's just full of teenagers sitting there flying these drones all around whether it's a gas pipeline or a building facade. So things are definitely changing. And then finally, in terms of the continued research, PMI surveyed the PMPs in the construction industry. We realised that for every $1 billion spent in construction, there is $127 million wasted. So again, an incredible number, and imagine what we can do by being more efficient and saving a lot of that money. And it's the most wasteful industry in the world. 70% of projects experience scope creep, 72 project delays, and 73 are over budget. We wanted to really drill into this and understand the the subject matter that's relevant to the team, and we saw things like the scope triangle, scope and change order management, communication, contract management, etc. Now, we didn't want to reinvent some things like the scope triangle. There's not much we can do in that. Health and safety, people like CII and others have done that to such a good and professional extent that we didn't want to delve into that either. So we started to fine-tune where we should be focusing. We then asked the subject matter most important in your specific role. We saw some very similar things there as well in terms of effective project communication, scope and change order management, etc. So we were starting to build a base for where we should be working in. And the last part of the research was, what are the most important skills for you in your role today? The top ones were leadership, because leadership, when there's times of crisis like there was through COVID, we needed strong leaders who could change quickly and understand what was happening and adapt the plan to suit. Communication's always been important, cost control, decision making and contract management. Okay, so then we started the construction initiative. Again, we wanted to get the best players from around the world who were willing to work with us and jointly develop this. So we got together virtually, of course, in that time. You can see here are some of the big partners with CII, as I mentioned, being one of them, but also working with the US Army Corps, Department of Energy, Jacobs Engineering, BHP, Petronas, who we have somebody in the room here that's come all the way from Malaysia. So great list of contractors, developers, consultants, not-for-profits like CII, as well as the Lean Construction Institute, and putting together what we see as a best-in-class course. And this is where we landed after all of that research, after all of the interviews, about a year and a half of workshop sessions with all of those partners, working very closely with them to, they tell us what's important, we go off, create content, come back to them and work with them to make sure that it's meeting the aspirations of what we're trying to achieve. So we have developed what's called the Construction Professional in Built Environment Projects. It's made up of these 7 different courses, and 3 of those courses have what's called a micro-credential. So it's the first time that PMI is awarding a micro-credential, so a test that would be done at the end of these courses. You can see that the topics that we've got here, for example, the communication topic, which is the first one there. We wanted to make sure that we were teaching people important techniques such as active listening. It's often said we have 2 of these and only 1 of this, but we're often not using it in that ratio. So teaching people how to listen, how to understand the problems, using methodologies like OBEA to help you in that methodology, and essentially developing a really clear communication strategy. It sounds simple, but it's often not done on projects. And that course has a micro-credential. The second one was on change order management, and that was obviously in every project there is changes, regardless of how well you manage that project. So how do we manage that change? How do we work with whether it's your client or your subcontractors? How do you formalise it so that it's not just being changes being made without some sort of system? The third one was on interface management, and interface management, I saw this as an issue at Marina Bay Sands. There is thousands of different contracts that have been let out. There is all sorts of grey areas between those contracts, and you have to deal with it. Somebody has to pick up those gaps and understand that, well, hang on, I've just poured this concrete wall. Where's the lights? Where are the speakers? All of these things that are often missing between scopes. So we're helping in this to reduce the risks, to identify the communication gaps and essentially deliver projects better. The fourth one, which is also a micro-credential, is on performance and materials management. The fact is that poor data is very common in construction projects, as well as poor materials management. So we wanted to put something together that addresses that and really sets up KPIs to drive the right behaviour. And at the end of that, you develop a strategy which helps you to improve performance. Then, the fifth one was on technology. This was a really popular topic. We had a lot of people who wanted to collaborate with us on that. Technology has not been used well in the construction industry. Again, it's lagging behind others, and I know there's a lot of people in this room who are helping to address exactly that. So it's learning about the key trends in data and technology. There's an amazing statistic of, in the UK, 95% of data that's gathered on projects is not used. So we're getting better at gathering that data, but not actually using it. So that's something we want to create the awareness so that doesn't happen. Letting people know the benefits of bringing in technology. Again, at Marina Bay Sands, we used, for example, I know there's Oracle guys here, but we used Primavera and Aconex as well to help us with our online collaboration systems. It's really about creating systems that allows people to communicate well and everybody to be on the same page. So that one is also a micro-credential course. The micro-credential courses are a little bit longer, a little bit more robust, and as I said, with a test at the end. The sixth one is on contract and risk management. Again, it's very common, but we wanted to look at it in a slightly different way. Understand the risks and how to deal with them properly, better equipping the project managers to deal with those risks, and critically risk assessing each component of the project. Now, PMI has a risk management professional, RMP course, which is next level, an incredibly well-received course, but it doesn't focus specifically on the construction industry. And the last one there is execution planning in the built environment. Again, poor planning is very common. Labour workforce planning is required. We've talked a lot about WBS, work breakdown structures and work packages, and these are all things that are being incorporated into these courses. So I wanted to really highlight how CII have worked together with us in this initiative. So I won't be telling you about the CII products and details and ways of working, but just to say that we were incredibly excited to bring in sort of over 30 years of research into this particular initiative, some of which is being incorporated, and others there is new content that's being created by CII as well. And it's really a history of industry best practice leadership. So, for example, the PDRI, Project Definition Rating Index, it's powerful, it's easy to use, a tool that offers a method to measure the project scope and the definition of that for completeness. And we've used that PDRI in our scope and change order management course, so we've incorporated into that. The impact of regulations on the project lifecycle. So regulations are obviously having a big impact on everything we do, whether it's existing or changing regulations. So it's really the concept of regulatory future-proofing and studying the impacts that those regulations will have. We've used that in our performance and materials management course. The IPRA, really a tool focused on the risks typically encountered during the project lifecycle, and we've again introduced those elements that you can see there into our contract and risk management course. And the last one being the advanced work packaging. providing the framework for productive and progressive construction. It presumes that there is the existence of a construction execution plan, which, surprisingly, on a lot of projects, there is no such thing. So we want to create the awareness of that and make sure it's being used to improve productivity, to reduce costs, and to increase the levels of safety. And that's being used on the execution planning course that we have as well. And sorry, there was one more. The flexible facility development really embraces the face or the reality that nothing is normal anymore. Things change and we need to be ready to adapt to that. 93% of manufacturers surveyed reported that uncertainty about their product and process persists into design and construction. So it starts very, very early, but it is continuing throughout the life cycles of the project. And 75% of those manufacturers claim that uncertainty occurs often and always on their capital construction projects. So again, elements of this we have incorporated into the Built Environment Technology and Innovation course. So I've talked a lot about why we're doing it, who we're collaborating with. I think the most important thing at the end of the day is what are the potential benefits to either you as an individual or to you as an organisation. So the first thing is it is an industry-led certification prepared by PMI, so a world-class institution, and we're looking to really set the new standard for global construction project management. So it's a bold claim and a bold vision, but we're very confident because we've been able to do this before and really roll that out around the world. It'll be important for people to have the same sort of language and understanding globally, and that was one of the pain points that we're trying to address. As an individual, it's an independent affirmation of your project management skills and capabilities, and a lot of people are looking to upskill, whether it's sponsored by organisations or not. They're still doing that. The certification helps organisations in improving efficiency, in profitability, which has become incredibly important with such low margins in the construction industry, and sustainability. Again, in all the surveys we did, that sustainable element just kept coming up again and again, and we'd like to dedicate an entire course to that in the near future as well. And a clear commitment to employees by upskilling them. So one of the, certainly in the top 2 or 3 issues that organisations are seeing at the moment is really retaining and attracting talent. It's such a difficult thing. I mean, it's hard to keep the best people, it's hard to bring in the best people. So this demonstrates clearly that the organisation is working with the employees to bring them up to speed, to make sure that they're not a potential statistic. For example, McKinsey says that in the next 10 years there will be 800 million people displaced from their current roles. So the roles will change. People are not retiring. They'd like to, but that's not happening. So we need to upskill them and just build within the organisation and the employees this sense of belonging and ownership so that they will stay with the organisation. So that's the key message today. We're very excited about this course that's been created. The 7 courses are already available online. We have finished the capstone exam, but we need to wait for people to do the 7 courses to start taking that exam. So everything is up, ready to go, and has already been taken by nearly 2,000 people all around the world. So we're excited, and I'm happy to open it up and ask for any questions that we might have.
All right. Thank you, Ben. That was wonderful. Okay, we got a couple of questions and time for a few. So with the first one is, with all of the tools in the industry via CII, PMI, and other sources, why do you think we still see such poor numbers related to cost, schedule, objectives, et cetera? Why is the industry not using the tools?
Well, I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of unrealistic expectations with budgets. Honestly, budgets are being developed very often with, I'll say an agenda where people are saying, okay, it should cost this much, so we're developing it and saying this is what it costs. And it's not the right way to do it, obviously. So unfortunately, there's a lot of government pressure or even private development saying, no, this is all we have to spend. So, for example, contractors will bid, be forced into a position where they are agreeing to a number, absorbing the risk, and then that's not a good environment to start. So I think that's definitely one of the things that is a contributor to that.
Okay, thank you. Next up, what is the duration of each course that you offer?
So that depends on the individual. So it's all online, it's a self-paced course. So the beauty of this is that you can, if you've got half an hour spare, you can take it part of the module and stop. Nice. Or you've got a 2-hour block, you do that. It's very hard to say how long each one would take. The estimates are, between 9 to 15 hours to complete one course. And obviously it really depends on your level of expertise and understanding. There's a lot of things in this that you can choose. We say choose your own adventure. So if there's certain elements that you want to know more, we've got either further reading or we've got case studies that you can click that are real life case studies that demonstrate that specific example.
Okay, thank you. There was a question about whether the training was instructor-led, but I think you already answered that one, so we'll move on to the next one.
But probably just on that.
Okay.
Already we have partners who are, and customers who are saying they do like the ability to have instructor-led training. So we're looking to develop that as well so that people have a choice.
Okay, thanks. Okay, the next one has a bit of a different flavor. Really happy to see PMI adding the construction project management besides the focus on IT project management. Is there a strategy for bringing knowledge and experience from IT to construction?
That is a really good question.
I agree.
I mean, look, if we go back 50 years ago, a lot of people sitting around that dining room table were from the construction industry. So then as time has progressed, it has moved more into IT industries for PMI. And there is a lot you can learn there. I don't specifically know. I'm not from an IT background. I'm from a construction background. It's a good question and we should think about it. So thank you, whoever asked that.
Yeah. All right, the next one was in the research, did you see any specific contracting strategies that perform better than others or any other strategies?
So we didn't drill into that level of detail. We deliberately left this initially for these first 7 courses at a relatively high level because there is obviously so much that you can drill down into. So we do mention some of the contract methodologies, but it wasn't specifically part of the questions that we asked. Hopefully, what we would like to do is in each of these 7, we can double click if there is a lot of interest in a particular course that is resonating well, or we go outside of the 7 and say this is what else people are interested in.
Okay. All right, the next one, really short. Does this new certification replace project management professional?
No.
Okay. Short question,
no,
short answer.
And again, we've tried to keep it separate. There's no overlap. The PMP does obviously have elements that are relevant to construction, like the risk management and the stakeholder management, etc. But no, we've kept it entirely separate. In fact, doing the construction course will allow you to get professional development units or PDUs for the PMP.
Could you talk a little bit more about that and say how different this new course is from the PMP?
I mean, as you can see from those 7 topics, it's very focused on the construction industry, and that was the whole point. You know, we had, over the years, 80,000 PMPs in construction, and some of them left because there wasn't enough focus on construction. So apart from this, we're also setting up a community of practice that focuses on construction, you know, teaming up with partners like CII. So we see that as very critical to the success of this course and then helping the industry to be more efficient and productive.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time for more questions. Ben, can you help people understand how they might get answers to some of the questions that they didn't get to ask today?
Sure. The first thing is happy to come up and see me if it's physically here today and tomorrow, or they go on the PMI.org website and just search for construction, and hopefully all of the answers will be in there.
All right, so find Ben at the next break. All right, thank you, Ben, very much. We really appreciate your discussion and bringing this information to us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.